Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist, Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show. Time once again for another edition of Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with Phil Putney and myself here to talk investing, finance, and retirement. And what are your financial pain points? Whatever they are that drives you to finally maybe getting a strategy or a plan in place. Everybody's, different in those pain points, but glad that you're taking that action if you are there. And if you're not there, then maybe checking this podcast out, this video out, might help highlight a couple that are bugging you or could be bugging you. And hopefully you'll get some help in that regard. And that's what we try to do. We try to bring some useful nuggets of information along the way when we do these shows. Philly, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good.
Yeah.
Doing good. Enjoying the summer.
Yeah.
So
getting the much needed rain. We're getting hosed here after months of being dry. We're just getting we're just getting hammered on a regular basis with the water, but we need it.
The opposite. We had a lot of rain early on, but the last month has been pretty dry. So
Mother Nature's off her meds as usual.
Yep, that's right.
But that's all right. Let's talk pain points, my friend. I got a list of several here I want to run through, and if I miss any, feel free to throw some in there. But when it comes to the catalyst that drives somebody in to see a financial advisor, usually it's some sort of a specific pain point, or maybe a couple, but one or two that really, are like sticking in their craw, right? So let me pull this up here. First one, well, obviously, let's just go with the classic. The first one is the number one all the time in every poll ever is the, running out of money. Like, is my money going to last as long as I do kind of thing?
Right. Do I have enough? So, that's key, right? You have to run those numbers ahead of time to make sure that what you've accumulated is going to be enough to support the lifestyle that you want in retirement. So, but too often I see clients almost go the opposite direction with this, right? They end up accumulating, working way too long, and they'll never spend the money.
Okay.
And it's a reoccurring theme that I see with clients throughout the years that I've worked with. That earlier stages of retirement you're spending and enjoying retirement, but then you get to a certain stage, it's like, you know what, I don't want to travel as much. I've done my hobbies. The body's not working as well as it once used to, so you're kind of slowing down a little bit, and you still have accumulated a pretty sizable amount of money, and it's like, what am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
So that's part of our process, is to help clients get over this fear or this hurdle of, do I have enough? Run the math. Let's make sure it works, because there's pros and cons on both sides. Overspending, that's a real risk, right? Because you don't want to be in your late 70s, early 80s and you're out of money. What's the option at that point? Totally different retirement. Hopefully you've got some kids and you're on good terms with them, because, maybe that's going to be an option. We don't want that as the plan, right? So our goal is to help, number one, establish a plan to make sure that you do have enough, have a strategy and plan in place to how this is going to last, but then monitor that on an annual ongoing basis so that we can help take this risk of running out of money away, right? Or at least that fear of running out of money.
Gotcha. No, it makes sense. That's the number one all the time across the board, right? Yep. And usually that written plan helps people kind of go, right? You can stress test that joker for different scenarios, and you can kind of see, okay, this happens. Okay, we're good. Or if we actually spend for the vacation, okay, we're good. Or whatever the case is. So that written strategy goes a long way, seeing it in black and white to help alleviate some of those pain points. Our friend, the Tax Man, the Beatles even wrote a great song about it way back when, is number two, right? So.
Yeah, and this is the thing that often catches people by surprise, if they've never known anyone that is kind of retired prior to them and has experienced this, too often retirees get shocked by it. They hit RMD age and it's like, what happened? I told I was going to be, I was told all these years I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, but you've done a good job saving, you've got a high Social Security benefit, let's say, coming into play, maybe a pension. All of a sudden your taxes are as high, if not higher, than what they were when you were in retirement. And that is the case that we like to plan and help clients kind of map this out ahead of time so they understand, right? In our planning process, we always run this base scenario, which is what was their idea of retirement? Number one, does it work? But then let's look at the pitfalls along the way. And taxes is very often one of those big pitfalls that, they look at those early stages of retirement and they're like, oh yeah, see, I was, what I was told about retirement's right. I'm in this low tax bracket. So, but I mean, that is not the long-term aspect always, and for those that have prepared well for retirement, very often is not the case.
Well, you can get into, so look, it's not a gift. I've been saying this a while. It'd be cool if it was, but it is not hey, you're 65. Congratulations. You get to be in a lower tax bracket. It's not a bonus or a gift that you get for becoming 65. You got to plan for it. If you want to stay or be in a lower tax bracket, often it requires planning because most people wind up being in the same tax bracket as what they were when they were working, right? And of course, with the money that we owe and the problems out there, the reality is what it is. We're in this historically low tax bracket, which we've talked about a gabillion times, but it's probably still going up. So,
I mean, at some point, that's the risk that's out there, is that high probability at some stage we are going to have higher taxes. So, and I mean, on the tax aspect, one piece that very often clients don't even think about is what happens when either spouse passes, because that's just the reality of
you go
life,
down the single payer and you're not used to it.
One of the spouses is going to predecease the other, and that changes the whole tax picture for that surviving spouse, because they still have all the assets. They have to take required minimum distributions still. They've lost one of the Social Security benefits, but it was the smallest, so they still have, even with less income, probably at least 2/3, if not more, of the income, but now the tax brackets got cut in half. So in that scenario, very often, even with less income, they're in a higher tax bracket than what they were as a married couple. So that's one of those aspects when we're running that strategy forward and saying, okay, here's what's going to happen potentially when either of you pass. So now what do we do today to fix that, so that when we get there, that isn't the case? Because if you wait till you're there, it's too late.
Well,
right? At that point,
you got to have the strategies going on, because it's going to happen. The reality is we're not going to pass at the same time. So somebody's going to be in that situation. And it's compounded. My next pain point that might drive people, to saying, okay, what do I do, is the uneasiness when there's no longer a paycheck. Often people say, well, I've got this nest egg. How do I turn it into a paycheck? But because you were just talking about like what happens when one spouse passes, that compounds that situation too. You might have the uneasiness about how to turn the 401 and whatnot into a paycheck. But what if you lose one person and now the income level is cut as well, right? So that really adds to the uneasiness.
And the fact of not having a quote unquote paycheck, I mean, it's a big hurdle, and that's where our plan comes into play, because it's a matter of showing you, starting with what is the income you need? Here's my base income we need, net paycheck, so to speak. Well, how are we going to get those monies? What is your strategy for getting that distribution or combination of distributions and other types of income like Social Security out, right? And that is one of the biggest hurdles that very often I see clients go through, is that they continue to delay retirement. In fact, I've got a couple I've been working with for almost 10 years now. And the plan was for both of them to retire 7 years ago. And the one spouse did. The other spouse did not.
Okay.
And this is the biggest hurdle for them was, well, but I don't have a paycheck. What am I going to do? It's like, but you've accumulated all these assets to generate the paycheck. And every year we get together and run the scenario. It's like, look, you can retire this year if you want. You don't need to continue to work. And it took them a lot of time to get over that hurdle. And we can only do so much, right? I mean, it's a matter of showing them, hey, it works. And the other spouse is like, see, this works. Hey, we're not getting any younger. I'd like to travel and do some things. It's time to retire. So, but yeah, it is a big concern.
The Tax Smart Retiree is your comprehensive guide to mastering tax efficiency for a flourishing retirement. you will find indispensable advice and actionable strategies designed to enhance tax savings, maximize Social Security benefits, protect against market volatility, and develop a customized retirement plan. To get your free ebook, click the link in the show notes of today's episode and download your copy of The Tax Smart Retiree right now.
Yeah, there's always those little things that we just don't see coming, right? I mean, that's just life in general. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, a strategy and a written plan can't stop all of it, but certainly it can help. Yeah. It kind of helps build up a base, I guess, where you're like, okay, I don't feel as bad about it. And to that point, I'll go to my next one, which is guilt, right? So a lot of times we've, especially if we've done a good job saving, if you and your spouse have really, sacrificed through the years and done this and that, and you think, hey, we've done an excellent job, I don't want to touch it now because we worked really hard at this. And it's like, that's great, but why? Why did you save it all if you were going to not enjoy it and spend it? Not saying spend it all frivolously, but again, a strategy helps you realize we can take the family on a trip. We can go on a cruise. We can, make some changes to the house to make it easier when we're older or whatever and not have the guilt.
Right. Right. And I mean, that's, again, part of the planning process in the beginning is to lay that strategy out to say, does it work? And if you continue down this path with a reasonable growth assumption, the reality is, or the probability is, you're going to have a pretty sizable inheritance left. Is that what you want?
Right.
Or do you want to maybe spend some of that early, improving lifestyle, enjoying time with the kids, grandkids, building memories?
As the joke goes, Phil, do you want to fly first class or do you want your kids to?
There you go. Right. I mean, so it's a matter of having that understanding. And I always tell clients as we're going through this, look, it's not my plan, it's yours. Yeah. My goal isn't to tell you what to do. My goal in the strategy is to show you the options and show you the potential outcomes and help you make then that informed decision. At the end of the day, it's your plan, it's your decision. Right. Do what you want to do. But if you continue down this path, then the probability is you're going to have this sizable inheritance or not. It's your choice. And the key with that plan, though, is that you've got to look at this on a regular basis. It's not a set it and forget it and then come back to it 10 years later, because it's going to be dramatically different. So have the plan, look at it every year, just so you can make those informed decisions. And if you're going to have that sizable inheritance left, if that's what you want to do, great.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at that and saying, my kids could really use it today. They've kind of outgrown the current house they're in and they could really, use an upgrade to a larger home, but they can't afford it. Maybe you can help out now versus, 10, 15 years, 20 years down the road, and now they don't need it anymore, but now they get this big inheritance.
Well, and that brings the final point up, which is tension between spouses, whether it's about the legacy, what to leave to the kids or the grandkids, or one's a saver, one's a spender, one's a traveler, one's not, right? So money, money's always the number one thing for couples anyway.
Right.
As far as a fighting or as far as a pain point, right?
A pain point, or where the tension comes into play. Yeah. Money is number one. But that is, again, part of my process and goal in working with clients is, number one, to bring it together so they can both see, and then to some extent help alleviate some of that stress. But at the end of the day, it's something they have to work out. I always joke and say, okay, well, now I'm going to put my counselor hat on because, we're dealing with the emotional side of retirement, which it is. Yep. I mean, it's retirement financial decisions. There's a lot of emotions involved.
It stresses people out, and understandably so. Yeah.
Yep. And that's my goal is being, I don't want to call it the intermediary, but that kind of unbiased person in the middle that, we've got the one spouse, let's say, that is the very conservative spouse, and I'm going to run out of money. We can't spend, we can't do this. The other spouse is like, we've got the money. Let's go enjoy retirement. Hopefully I can help build the plan and give the spouse that is struggling with running out of money, maybe some comfort in saying, look, financially, it can work fine. Based on what we have today, let's do it. We can look at it again next year. We can stress test it. What happens if, right?
Yeah.
But we try to build in the scenarios so that even in those downturns in the market or whatever it happens to be, it's not going to totally derail your retirement. It shouldn't.
Yeah.
If you have the right strategy in play, no matter what happens in a market, it should not derail everything. So, And that's kind of the goal of that plan, and working with a couple long term is building it out at first, but then helping them walk through that year in and year out, making sure they're still on track, making sure they're both kind of enjoying retirement together. Mm-hmm. Some of it, obviously, they've got to work out themselves, but
yeah. Well, and I think that, Phil, that's why the move over the last couple of years from so many advisors I know and talk to like yourself, it's like, hey, look, no, both people need to be involved in this process. Absolutely. Because we want both people to be aware of what's happening, know what they've got, why they've got it, and that they're both comfortable with the outcome and they're getting their needs met. Often we've talked many times about one person in the relationship doesn't care as much about the long-term planning. They just want to know that they're okay. Yeah, that's great. And if it's not your thing, but you at least still need to be in these meetings and understand, a good 10,000 foot view of what's happening so that you do know where to turn when the other person passes. And you do feel like you're getting your voice heard. I mean, I know you and I've had this conversation. I've talked to other advisors where they're like, we've gotten emails from ladies who have said, I went, with my husband for a consultation. The guy barely even spoke to me and we got up and walked out. Right. So that trend has been changing, thankfully.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, again, if you're married, it's a joint proposition, just like the rest of just like the rest of your life was, Yeah.
And there's always, or not always, but typically one of the spouses that is much more involved in the finances. And that's fine. Maybe they enjoy it. It's just what they've done.
Hey, I've learned to start cooking more. I've learned to start cooking more to make my wife happy, but I actually like it. But I'm never going to be as good as she is, right?
Right.
But
and it's, same thing. I mean, you don't have to be involved in the day-to-day, but you at least have to understand, does this work and why are we making the decisions we're making? Because what's happening today, the decisions that are being made are going to affect you long-term.
Yes, sir.
Especially if you're maybe a younger spouse, female, male. I mean, there's, life expectancy differences there.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and again, not to be stereotypical, but a lot of times it's the wife that isn't as involved. The husband's making all the decisions. Well, the decisions he's making are going to affect her.
After he's gone.
Statistically, she's going to be the surviving spouse. Yeah. It's just statistics and how it plays out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's, at the end of the day, it's a pain point. Whatever your pain point is, if it's not one of these ones we touched on, that's okay. Reach out to an advisor and say, hey, this is bugging me. I'm worried about this. How do I deal with this? Or can you help me with that? And that's why they, advisors I know all across the country, they offer these complimentary consultation and review to see if they're a good fit for you and you're a good fit for them. It's a two-way street. It's relationship building versus just going to, let's just, call it what it is, like a broker where you're just, hey, I'm, buying in transactional kind of thing. Right. Build a relationship, find an advisor that works for you, reach out to a couple. Phil is certainly here to help. He helps clients obviously in the Michigan area, but also all across the country as well. So if you need some help and you're checking out this podcast in audio or video form, either way, reach out to him. We have links in the show descriptions down below. Just go to philstaxhacks.com. That's the podcast website. But of course, you can get in touch with him. It redirects back around. And we have the other links there as well. So reach out to him, get started, have a conversation for yourself, and deal with those pain points. Thanks for your time. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, and right here on YouTube. And we'll catch you later on Phil's Tax Hacks and other retirement facts. See you, Philly.
All right. Take care.
Phil? Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.